Turn to Russia. In recent days, that country has intensified attacks on Ukraine's port cities. The city of Odessa has been struck by missiles or drones nearly every day since Russia left a key multi-nation grain deal last week. USAID Administrator Samantha Power is just back from a visit to Odessa and Kyiv, now announcing additional American funding to support Ukraine. And Administrator Power joins us now. Thank you so much for being with us. First of all, if you could tell us what you saw on the ground here now, almost a year and a half into this war. How are the Ukrainian people holding up?
Well, maybe I'll start in Odessa. That I arrived in the port city, first senior U.S. official to get down there, and the port, which had been buzzing with life just a couple days before, was just dead, insofar as Russia pulling out of the deal the day before I arrived meant that none of the ships, none of the workers, none of the economic life that is so central to Odessa's economic survival alongside its physical survival, all of that had gone quiet. So that was something that, of course, everybody was lamenting. They had expected it. Russia wants to destroy Ukraine's economy as a way of forcing it to surrender, since it's not going very well for Russia on the battlefield itself. I'd say writ large, you know, they're digging in for a long winter ahead. I think there had been hope that the war would end sooner, but now they're thinking about how do we protect our energy infrastructure, because now we know going into the winter that Putin's going to weaponize the cold as he weaponizes food. So there's really just a pragmatic mindset. I wouldn't say morale is thrilled that the war is, you know, dragging in halfway through its second year. But you sense no diminishment of support for President Zelensky and such a dedication to the so-called patriots or heroes who are going and fighting this really tough counteroffensive, which, of course, is grueling because of the Russian defenses that have been set up, including minefields, booby traps, and the like.
So, Samantha, to that point that you just raised, we showed a clip of you meeting with President Zelensky just a couple of seconds ago. You've been to Odessa. You've met with the Ukrainian people. You've met with many veterans of the Ukrainian war, people who are still fighting the war each day. President Zelensky came under some controversy a couple of weeks ago, implying that he wasn't grateful enough to the United States and to NATO for the equipment and ordnance that have been shipped into Ukraine. But what if we take a pause here and think about the fact that perhaps it is us, the United States and the free NATO countries, who ought to thank the Ukrainian people for what they're doing, fighting Russia?
Yeah, I mean, I have to tell you, every meeting you have when you're over there is the first 5 minutes is this effusive thanks for, in the case of USAID, we have the privilege of providing direct budget support, which keeps the government going, allows teachers, healthcare workers, firefighters, who are very needed, of course, in a war, allows them to continue to be paid, allows pensioners not to go cold in winter. And so they thank you. And it feels super awkward. It's what? No, thank you. Thank you, President Zelensky. Thank you, mental health care workers, those who are counseling people who've suffered gender-based violence. Thank you who are documenting war crimes to try to bring the perpetrators to justice ultimately. So I very much feel the same way you do, and I can just assure you that in my meetings there was no shortage of gratitude. There's also always a list because this war is not easy, and Russia is bringing everything at the Ukrainian people, not just on the military battlefield, but, you know, by attacking civilians. You know, Zelensky's very eager to do everything he can to protect civilian infrastructure, to protect civilian population centers like Odessa, which is now a target really for the first time in more than a year. So we talked about that. But the other thing I would say is Zelensky's very focused on resuscitating the Ukrainian economy. So apart from security asks, his number one non-security ask was support for small and medium-sized enterprises, which I think might surprise an American audience. But, you know, he wants business to boom, and the tech sector has grown 6 or 7% over the course of the last year, actually since the war started. So that's something USAID is looking at, is how do we attract Ukrainian refugees back from Europe, which mainly female refugees, women refugees, as the men stay on the front. And part of doing that is supporting agriculture, supporting SMEs, and really backing the entrepreneurship that we see on the battlefield, but that actually they're bringing as well to business and to the private sector.
Administrator Power, Jonathan Lemire, I wanted to go a little further with what you just brought up there. Obviously, the focus is on the military fight, the military funding. Ukraine's counteroffensive has really ramped up in recent days. But, of course, there's also the need to rebuild the country, an effort that can't wait until the fighting stops. Could you just put into perspective for those watching today just the sheer enormity of the reconstruction project that lies ahead for such a war-battered nation?
Well, I mean, the estimates go up every day, right, of the wartime damage that Putin has inflicted. We, USAID, in support of the Ukrainians, we operate in the here and now and think about the long-term reconstruction in the here and now. Every time Putin hits a grain silo, the Ukrainians want to patch it up and make sure that it's ready for the next harvested crop to come and store that crop. So you might have seen earlier in the week that grain infrastructure was hit not only in Odessa, but actually for the first time in the Danube River ports, which USAID has helped expand the use of so that the Ukrainians are not only reliant on the Black Sea, and of course, as Putin, knowing that they're using these ports more and more, hit those. Well, it looked like that was going to be very damaging, but within 24 hours, those ports were up and running as if nothing had happened. So I want to stress that reconstruction is happening now. USAID invested $400 million in the winter on energy infrastructure repair. But we just met in London. Secretary Blinken attended for the United States with the donors who are already thinking about what the scale of that mammoth enterprise when the war is concluded. But again, we're trying to attract the private sector now. There are large parts of the country that are peaceful, and there are business sectors that are growing or that we just need to sustain, like the agricultural sector. So we have to do repairs in the moment and then bring in the multilateral development banks, the private sector, and other donors in the long term for that much, much more substantial enterprise.
All important work. USAID Administrator Samantha Power, thank you so much for being here this morning. We appreciate it.